Hello, you forlorn forgotten. This is the Roguerifler, and this is the Reworked Forgotten mod release video. That's a mouthful. Anyway, so we're actually in vanilla right now in a little test map because I want to talk a little bit about the Shattered Arc. Um, I really don't like the design of this unit. It's the first unit that Triumph's released since in like the entire set of Age of Wonder series that I actually dislike the design of it. Like certain units might be overpowered or underpowered. That's a little like a numbers thing. I really didn't like the design of this unit. The reason why is when you look at this unit, you're like, wow, let's figure out what's actually good about it. It's not any of this crap, all the active abilities. No, it doesn't matter. These passives don't even matter. You come down here to this essence channeler thing. And it's not even that big paragraph there. It's that tiny little sentence at the bottom. This unit and all friendly units gain +1 shield per active essence charge, up to a maximum of +5 shield. And that's crazy, right? In other words, this unit, if it gets buffed up with essence, provides a massive buff to all units on the battlefield, right? Including itself. No duration, no counterplay essentially, right? Unless you kill this thing, which at that point is going to have tons of arm or tons of shield, decent chunk of HP, and that's its strength, right? The rest of its kit almost doesn't matter, right? If you are the Heritors and you are able to get these, you can just pump them full of essence, and it's a huge, it's such a huge benefit. The other problem is it's not consistent, right? It's not like consistently overpowered. It's if you're not playing as the Heritor, good luck, right? Because there's no way that you have to directly just, you know, consistently get this unit essence. You have to depend on its kit. Well, let's look at its kit. It's got this one ability called Shatter Communion. Actually, these other abilities don't matter because without essence or without a RNG proc happening, they don't even matter. So essentially, it's just got this one ability at the start, and it has an 8 strength chance to apply this condition called Corrupt Communion with the target unit, right? Uh, if it applies that condition, this unit will get an essence, right? So it's got an 8 strength chance to gain 1 essence a turn, um, and to also apply its Corrupt Communion debuff to a target, right? To use its other ability, Atrophic Penance, it needs to target a unit with Corrupt Communion. So if it fails that RNG check, it does nothing. This unit just it feels like a roll to move game, right? You get your unit, you get it ready to go, and it all comes down to rolling on this 8 strength chance to apply Corrupt Communion on its target. If you fail, the unit does nothing, its passive does nothing. You couldn't have done anything else because all of your other abilities require Corrupt Communion or Essence. It just feels like this unit shows up and starts rolling dice. Um, and even if you do succeed on those rolls, like you're not going to build up the Essence Channeler the way you could as a Heritor. So this unit's effectiveness changes wildly depending on if you're the Heritors or not. And I thought that needed to change, and I didn't like it. A minor thing. So this mod primarily focuses on reworking the Shattered Arc, and also trying to make the defensive Golem and the Serpion a little bit more distinct from each other, because they're kind of two peas in the same pod at this point. So we're gonna head over to the modded version. All right, folks, welcome back. I loaded up the mod and I got us into some combat to demonstrate all the changes. So the first thing is that um, the Shattered Arc's passive no longer applies the +1 shield to all units in the battle. It's just itself, right? I kind of like the idea that this is like a unit that's struggling to maintain itself, maintain its own existence. So stat-wise, it starts off pretty weak, right? Most tier 3 units, 60 HP, 5 armor. This unit comes to battle with 3 defense and 55 HP. A little bit weaker, but it can build up a ton of shields if played right. So it gets stronger off the pain and suffering of its enemies. Sounds great. So I guess to transition to that, this unit's role is kind of now more like a support tank rather than whatever like the pure support passive bullshit it was before. It's now a support tank, meaning it builds up in the right circumstances. It can mitigate lots of damage, and it focuses on not doing damage, but applying status effects, or in this case, applying status effects and debuffs to enemy units. So there's quite a lot to go through. Let's get going. All right, that didn't work. So the first big thing is that it's got this Enfeebling Blast, which is a basic attack. Does less damage than the Golem's, defensive shot, but in exchange it applies both Entropic Decay and Energy Drain at 12 strength, right? So it kind of gives it a decent default attack. The other big thing is that Shattered Communion has been reworked from being an attack to kind of this setup ability. So if we bring it forward, Shattered Communion has a 9 range, can't miss, and doesn't require LOS, right? You're like that, and it automatically applies Corrupt Communion. There's no RNG check here, right? And like that sounds broken. But the thing is, the negative effects from Shattered Communion apply at the end of the opponent's turn. So if the opponent can come over and stagger your Shattered Arc, it'll cancel this link and the status effects won't apply. And also, by that extent, you won't gain the essence from this link if you're staggered, right? So there's basically, it's a telegraphed ability that has outplay via stagger, right? So you can do that. Let's just demo that. So see, it did a little bit of damage. It got some Entropic Decay. We got an essence. Well, that's great. So now we're going to kind of get into the defense tank role. So if this unit's positioned properly, and it sets up a Shattered Communion, it now has the ability to apply a Trophic Penance, right? This is a full action and continue ability, does a little bit of damage, and potentially applies up to 4 stacks of Entropic Decay to its target. So, and this ability directly targets the specific unit that's linked to the Shattered Arc. The vanilla implementation, you can actually target any unit that's linked to a Shattered Arc, which is really weird because then all your Shattered Arcs can target one unit, and it's kind of silly. So we can just click that, boom, it's almost dead. I still have an action point left, meaning I can target another backline unit to debuff. And let's see, I kind of want to do some other demos, so we're going to kill this, and we're going to, I don't want to kill it with this because of reasons, but I probably can do some damage with it. And can we kill it? That's the question. Yes, we can. Okay, perfect. So that's kind of set up, and I think we're okay. So we're going to look at its defense mode, Harvest the Weak. This unit gains +2 shields and heals, consumes all corpses in a 3 hex radius, heals for 8 HP per corpse, gains 1 essence per corpse. So one of the chief problems with making the Shattered Arc into a support tank is that not a lot of healing abilities can target this, right? Can we actually see? The Pug can't target it. Most tier 2 support units can't heal this unit. So if this unit's going to be taking damage, it needed a way to be able to heal up a little bit. It's got a couple ways to do that. It's got this Embalm Essence ability. I also buffed this to be in line with the changes to the Purification Field, right? Purification Field is a, whatchamacallit? It's a Promethean mod that used to do the same thing essentially, but gave you got buffed to plus 15 HP, so I thought why not mirror that. So let's demo this defense mode. Defense mode is great for a couple reasons. One is it allows it to kind of buff its stats to be in line with a tier 3 unit, a normal tier 3 tank unit. So it gives it a way to like gain 2 shields when it needs to. And it also gives it a way to self-heal, which, you know, since it's a crystal unit, it's actually kind of hard for it to do. So let's see what happens. So, boom! It would have healed, but this thing hadn't taken any damage, but it got some more essence. So you can kind of see it's slowly transitioning to this, like, you know, powerful tank unit, right? Its attacks do more damage. It actually scales pretty crazily because of the, not only is this thing doing more damage for having all this essence, but the debuffs it provides allow it to do more damage. So we have Unmake, so I think I demoed this. Now, this is going to be a little overkill. It actually does usually a lot less damage. I think its base damage is 24, but we're at plus 40% damage, which is why it's doing 34 damage. And this is kind of like the super version of the Atrophic Penance, right? It's a full action, range 9, doesn't miss, does decent chunk of damage, but is incredibly debilitating. So you get 2 guaranteed stacks of energy drain and entropic decay on the target, and 2 12 strength checks of both as well. So you can really debilitate units. This is pretty much designed to allow this unit to like have a strong fight against, you know, a really buffed up tier 3, tier 4 unit. Like, you know, if you had like a Devar tier 4 unit with like 14 armor and has 100 HP, you know, this is a way to, you know, really debilitate that unit and to start doing lots of, be able to set up lots of damage against it. It's going to be overkill on these units because it's not designed to fight these units. Look at that. Right, this is like using the, yeah, this is overkill, but it's really designed to target heroes, to target big fat units, kind of make this an anti super buffed unit is what it is. So it's full action, you know, can't miss, applies tons of status effects. You might say, oh, that's crazy, all those status effects are overpowered. Well, gotta keep in mind, most support abilities have a cleanse, and that cleanse will get rid of all of those status effects. So you have to be a little intelligent about using it. And when you use it, your Shattered Arc goes from having, you know, plus 4 shields to having you know, losing most of its defense. So the Shattered Arc becomes incredibly vulnerable, you know, if it uses that ability. So I think that's all the changes. You know, it's got a cool range attack that can charge up to deal with heavily buffed units and defensive units. It's got a way to heal itself, which was a little bit of a problem because it was a crystal unit. It's got an attack. Actually, I don't think I even demoed the attack, but the attack, you know, works pretty well with its Shattered Communion, because you can like put out a corrupt communion on a unit, and then you can attack a different unit, or you can use Entrophic Penance and then move the Shattered Communion debuff to someone else, and then attack someone if you're positioned right. So again, it really rewards you for being in a position to fight opponents rather than just sitting behind a wall and predominantly just using the Shattered Communion buff. So it makes it a more active unit. I think it's pretty cool. This was also, I was supposed to demonstrate what these units do, but I kind of messed up. So let's go over the changes. Now, the changes for these guys are a lot less crazy. Pretty minor. The Golem and the Serpion were really similar to each other. They're basically like melee and range variants of each other. And I want to kind of make them a little bit more different. So the big one is that I really liked the essence scaling mechanic idea for the Shattered Arc and the Eater of the Dead, which is the tier 4 unit. They both have this sort of passive where they get more of a stat, or they get a bigger benefit for having essence. I wanted to extend that to the tier 2 Forgotten units. So the Golem gains plus 10 accuracy, plus 1 and plus 1 range for each essence it holds. So like, it can kind of transition to be a little bit more of a range unit that not only applies to its base attack, which means it can like essentially turn into a little sniper, but it also applies to its essence base attack. And its essence attack, essence erosion, now is massive impact. So to my knowledge, there isn't a way to mod units with entropic damage outside of maybe melee attacks to do massive impact. So giving this unit massive impact kind of distinguish itself from the Serpion initially, because before it was like this does staggers. It has a long range grenade that's a full action, and this thing has melee attacks that essentially do the same amount of stagger. Kind of felt pretty similar. Now this is a way for you to be able to stagger like stagger resistant units on upgraded tanks. Um, minor change, but I think it helps distinguish the Golem a little bit. So, I don't know, just shoot it, maybe not. The Serpion has the Essence Stalker trait, which makes it 10% harder to hit with range weapons per active essence. So, it gets a little bit strong, a little bit harder to hit. This combos with the actually, we're not going to talk about that, but basically, makes it a little bit harder to deal with in melee. And its essence attack, Rot Emanation, applies potentially up to 2 entropic decay debuffs. Before, it was kind of like this unit applies, it has a slightly higher chance at entropic decay, and this applies, it's an AoE that applies entropic decay at a little bit less strength, and that was like the distinguishing factor. Now the essence corrosion, massive stagger, applies 1 stack. This has no stagger, applies 2 stacks, right? So I think that's pretty cool. And those are the changes. I hope you like them.